Gym is closed. Walking trail today. It's nice out though. Beautiful day. Today we're talking about how to creatively use loops and samples. Like we talked before in this series, if you do use loops and samples in the wrong way, it comes across really authentic, corporate sounding, cheap, not good to whatever audience you have, and just to your own ears. You'll pick up an ear for it if you haven't already. As a music producer, you definitely want to be able to use loops, samples, pretty much any piece of audio, be able to make that into the song of your dreams. So today we're going to talk about that. Be talking about some creative ways to use loops, creative ways to chop things up. Gonna get into the studio. Got a jog about a mile here. Gym was closed. Typically we're doing our drive there, drive back. But not today, I guess. Today it's a trail walk day. Anyways, welcome to episode 8. If you're checking out other videos on the series, you can hit the playlist down below. Catch up on the series taking you from beginner to pro in music production. Alright guys, I'm just pulling back at my place. There's a lot of different ways that you can use a sample in your music. I think the important thing in using samples in your music is the mentality that you have as you're creating with the sample. If we compare it to a painter, right? Say this is a cool color, I want to use this on my painting. That's one thing. But if you come into it with the perspective of, if I can find the perfect sample, that's going to shortcut this process and make this easier for me. Basically a shortcut mentality of taking the easy way instead of trying to make your favorite song. Of course it's going to come out different. I've totally done this before myself, where I've sat down and I've gotten a sample, dragged it in, and just made a beat just because I wanted to do that. That's the thing that you're supposed to do. I do think it's similar to if you're in the gym and you're doing a rep, like a pull-up or something like that, and you do a terrible form, right? I might have done it, it might do something for me, but honestly, I'm using terrible form. And if I keep doing that long term, I'm just not gonna get super far, right? So it's the same thing with samples. And we're gonna get into that today. I'm gonna walk you through my process, how not to get lazy with samples, of how to use them in a creative way, to stay in the position of an artist and not walk into a position where I'm kind of just stealing somebody else's work, essentially. I want to create my unique sound and put my stamp on it every single time. And I'm going to show you some ways that I do that. If it works for you, that works. So I hope that's useful. I'm going to shower up. We'll jump into the studio. Let's get into it. Alright, we are in the studio. I'm sorry, I know it's loud as heck. There's AC unit going. Things are happening, guys. This is real life. I've kind of made a project for us to go through this topic together so I can show you my method of making samples sound original. I kind of walk you through in each one of these tracks the process of what we're doing today. In the last video on sampling and looping that we did, we started with this exact sample from Logic's stock loop library, right? We drag that in. Here's what it sounds like. One way to use this loop in a song, which is acceptable, is to just drag that in, call it good, use that as the inspiration, build your track on top of it. Totally acceptable. You can do this. Is it the best way? I don't think so. Hopefully by the end of this video, you won't think so either, and we can make better music, depending on your definition. Maybe we have difference of opinion. Totally fine. Learn what you can, take away what you want from this video. If it's not for you, it's not for you. No big deal. An overview of my technique is taking our original loop through as many processes as I can to bring it to a completely new sound that is and also feels like it's 100% my own, this is our final product that we have after going through these steps. It's almost a completely different mood than the original, and it's completely unique to me. All that you can tell is that there's an electric piano. You probably couldn't identify the original sample, the electric piano, and I like this. For me, it makes me feel like I really do own this, and I've created this. I haven't just dragged it in and let it become part of my track. Which again, nothing cheating about that, but you came to this video to see how to creatively use samples and loops to not cheat, quote unquote. So let me walk you through the process of how this sample turned into this. As we get into the method 2, it's not like I just apply this to every single loop or sample that I'm trying to modify. These are certain techniques that you can use to get closer to a sound that's your own, a sound that's original. And use these techniques as you want. You can feel free to disregard a few of them or add on a couple more. And it really just depends on your preference. Like we were talking about earlier, you're like a painter who's mixing different shades of paint. And so as we're doing this, there's a lot of techniques that you can use. Throwing on effects to a signal, reversing it, pitching it up and down, chopping it up. All those things that I do in here. But it's really up to you how you want to blend those things together. So first thing that we do on this piano is we actually pitch it down. We went down -3. We know that. It's pretty easy. Pitching something down, that's good. After this, we reverse this, and this is a really key step. There's no plugins or anything on here. It's the audio file actually being transformed inside of Logic. This is a reversed file. Sounds way different and not necessarily good either. What I'm listening for in this reverse sample is the tones that I like, the chords, the different sounds that are in here that are just kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. What if I could rearrange this a little bit and kind of make a melody that I'm hearing in my ears using a combination of different parts that I liked. This definitely took the most work, this next step by far, but chopping up the sample was definitely worth it. I basically took the elements that I liked and arranged them in a way that was pleasing to my ears to play this sample. So it takes more time, but it was well worth it. Here's what that sounds like. So a lot more glitchy. It's got chords that kind of make sense and a melody that is nice to my ears. We could have left it right there, but I want to go through one more step. And from my experience, the more of these steps that you mix or throw in, the more that the final product is going to end up sounding completely different from the one before. The final step that I added to this was throwing on effects to this. These aren't just mixing effects like we talk about mixing in music. Most of the time a mixing engineer wouldn't make the decisions in adding effects that I made on this track. These are specifically producer effects, if you will. So I'm dumping on effects to this track that actually affect the tone, the character of the source, and are not helping it to sit in a mix in a way. So that's what I would consider like more of a producer's role, less of a mixing engineer's role. Let me break it down. First we got Beat Breaker. I just use this instant triplet mode, and what this does is two things. First, it pitches the sample down. I don't know how much, but it definitely, you'll be able to hear it. It does. And then it also changes those little stutters that I had into triplets. And so here's what that sounds like. Completely different sound. After this, we have a distortion plugin, and this is the brand new one from Logic, Chroma Glow. This is really just to give it more of a gritty tape feel, wanting to give it my own character by adding in saturation and these different effects. I'm actually bringing out different elements that you didn't really hear as much in the original signal. Even though they were there, I'm just bringing them to light in a different way. And then we have this tape delay, which I'm using in a different way that I typically do. There's no delay happening. I'm just blending in our character, spreading it out, using some modulation, and still some dry signal, mostly dry signal, and then just a little bit of wet to that, and it really just widens it. Some EQ after that to balance things out. Finally, we added some OTT here, over the top compression is what I think it stands for. This is a free plugin, so if you don't have it, probably get it, because I use it a lot. And it helps me because a lot of times I'll get to this point in the process, and this plugin is essential for me because what it does is all the dynamics and things I've gotten buried as I've chopped this to bring out the elements that I like. All of those elements that have been lower and more subtle, this plugin brings them right back up. It's compressing both downward but also upward. And that's what I really like about this plugin, is it's bringing up the things that I had lost through chopping, adding effects, all this different stuff. This just brings them back up to the top in my ears, which I really appreciate. All right, next, I kind of wrapped it up and made this into a little groove, just for the sake of showing you how it could work in a mix. And once again, I went through these similar processes with a few drum breaks. Not quite as many steps in this, because with the drums there's only so much you can do. Added some effects to this, some clip distortion, just making it sound a little bit more dead. Some EQ for the low end. Here's the original drum break. And then with the effects and chopped, sounds like this. Can you hear specifically at the end, a little chop right there? These are artistic choices that I'm making to the track, kind of giving it a style and feel that I like by splitting things up and rearranging them. It's not just making it unique to me, it's also enhancing the overall track. Then we have one more drum break that I just do honestly a pretty simple chop on this one, and add some effects as well. Here's the original. Here's the chopped one. Some effects. We have a high cut. And then we have some reverb. What I hope you'll hear is that these chops are actually affecting how the drum break interacts with the sample. If I had left them as is, it would have sounded fine. But with the chops, it actually helps the piano and drums punch at the same time. So we'll listen to the whole thing. As a fun experiment, I'm gonna just play the original samples together. We'll listen to that versus what I've got, and you guys will be able to hear the difference. Hopefully it doesn't make me look dumb. So that's the original samples. No effects, no chopping, nothing that I did present on these tracks. And that's totally fine. You can make that into a song. You can do what you want. Here's a comparison of what I've made now. There's just just a little bit more intrigue that's added by taking the time and work to go through a process of making something your own. For me, the version that I came up with just makes me more curious on what the music's all about, the story that's telling. I can hear that there's something happening to it. The previous one didn't necessarily sound bad, but I could just tell that there wasn't necessarily as much that went into it. That's just my opinion. If this is helpful to you guys, if you learned some techniques, I want you to know that there's a whole video series on this topic right now, and there's going to be more videos in the series following throughout the summer as we're tackling music production from a more laid back and vlog style, chill format. So hope we're enjoying it. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.